So you quoted a job for a customer, you got that job, and you take that job down to the floor. If you have employees, do you tell them how much time you quoted for that job to take? Or is it better to keep that information to yourself? What's up, guys? Ian Sandusky from Lakewood Machine Tool, back here again for Practical Machinist. And on this episode of Machine Shop Talk, we're going to be diving back into a very old thread on the Practical Machinist forums to answer someone who came on with exactly this question. But before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications below to make sure you never miss a video. Let's get into it. Okay guys, so as promised today, we are going to be diving back into the Practical Machinist shop management and ownership subforum. I really like reading old threads on there sometimes. You know, there's threads that go back years and even decades on that forum because it's been around forever. So it's cool to go back sometimes and see how perspectives have changed, but also just to see sometimes what are some issues and questions that people have had that keep coming up year after year, decade after decade, you know, the evergreen stuff. And this was one that I haven't actually seen asked before, but it's something I've heard debated before since then. And what happened was a person came on to the shop management and ownership subforum, and they said that I can't remember if they're the owner or the manager, but in any case, they're the person who quotes jobs, and they're the one that runs the shop. So they're the manager or the owner. And they were wondering if after you go and you quote a job, so, you know, guys who don't know, when you quote a job, you quote your material, you quote any tooling, you quote your timeline, but then you also quote your labor. And your labor 99% of the time is going to be a function of how long is this job supposed to take? So is it a day? Is it a few hours? Is it X number of minutes? Is it a week? That's how you quote the job. So what they were wondering is, after you get that job, is it good practice to go to the floor and talk to the machinist who's actually going to run this job, give them the work order and say, hey, there is X number of hours allotted to this job? That's the question. Now, I've heard this debated both ways over the years, and I've seen it done both ways, you know, out in the field when I've been out with Practical Machinists and also talking to other shop owners. There's kind of two camps here, and I think they both have merit. So the first camp is that you should always tell the people on the floor how long a job was allotted to take. So this is how much time is in this job. I see this a lot with larger shops, especially production shops. Production shops do this all the time. Some shops, when they tell their people how long it's going to take, actually even break it into smaller pieces. So this job has 3 hours allotted for setup. This job has 1 hour allotted for first off inspection, another hour at the end of the job for final inspection, and then there are X number of running hours or work days to complete the run. For the company, this makes a lot of sense and has a lot of perks. Firstly, if you know in theory how long a job is going to take, you can schedule your jobs really tightly together. So, you know, you can plan right down to the day. This job is finishing Tuesday afternoon at 2 p.m., which means by 3 p.m. we're going to be running on this next job. So that means, you know, if you guys ever hear about just-in-time ordering, it's kind of died a little bit since the pandemic, but a lot of the big companies still use it. It's where they want material to hit their floor, you know, the day or the day before they need it, because that way they're not tying up a ton of money or space and inventory that's just sitting there. It's trying to minimize the windows on their net 30 terms or net 90 terms with each other to keep cash flow good, keep things running efficiently. In theory, if you time this out right and everything goes to plan, you can do this. As well, if the job runs exactly to the amount of hours you budgeted to it, in theory, you're going to make exactly the profit that job was supposed to make. Everybody's going to get paid what they need to, and the job is a good job. However, did you notice that I said in theory about 1,000 times there? The problem is that theory is not always reality. You know, the problem is that a lot of people, especially at these really large shops, you know, in the automotive worlds, or even, you know, production for their own products in some cases, or even giant job shops, One of the problems can be that the people who do the quoting end up really far away from the manufacturing floor. And I don't mean just physically, but mentally, right? Even someone who's a machinist for a lot of years, if they go up to the office and they're quoting and they quote for 5, 6, 7 years, they may lose touch with the realities of how long things are going to take, or building in a bit of padding to know that, oh, that cutter is going to break a lot, so I should build an extra 2 hours into that job because they're using teeny tiny cutters, because I know that it's going to take time to change those cutters. So the problem is that the quoted time that people upstairs may be getting smaller compared to the reality on the floor where it should take longer. They may look at a job and say, oh, this is an easy job. It'll take 2 days. I budget it for 2 days, not realizing that that job actually is deceptively tricky and is going to take 4 days. The result of this is that the people on the floor who actually need to make these parts, if they're constantly feeling pressure or constantly feeling they're behind, or even constantly getting berated or come down on that they're not finishing the job in the allotted time, this is going to end up with a lot of unhappy people. If you add in there a shop owner or manager who gets angry and pushes, everybody in this situation loses, because the shop's not making the money it needs to make and could be losing money. The jobs are shipping late, so the customers are unhappy. And also, you've got a bunch of machinists who are very unhappy with where they work, probably aren't going to work there for very long if they have any options. It's kind of the way it goes. On the other hand of this argument, you have the people who say you should never tell the people on the floor or the people actually doing the jobs how long you allotted for it. These people in this camp tend to believe that, the job's going to take as long as the job's going to take. If you hire good people, you trust them, you support them, you give them all the tools to succeed, that job is going to be done as fast as it can be, and it's on you to have quoted it correctly, not on the people on the floor to have lived up to some kind of expectation. In theory, this is good. I agree with this as well. Where this begins to fall apart a bit is, while the tell people everything in terms of the job, even if it's unrealistic, may be over communicating or unrealistically communicating, this camp kind of relies on not communicating. It's maybe not as extreme as not communicating, but you're not telling anybody information on that job, which means that things could get rushed when they shouldn't be rushed, or it means that things could take a lot longer for not so good reasons than they should. As in, if I communicate a timeline to someone and say, hey, listen, I know this is only a 2-piece job. I know you could probably have this done in 2 days. This is a really important job. I want to make sure that it's done correctly. I want to make sure you're doing all your checks properly. I have 3 days budgeted for this job. Take your time. That communicates, hey, listen, dial it back a bit. Or on the other hand, if someone's chasing tents when there's a 20 thou tolerance and taking a week for a job where it should take 3 days, communicating that and saying, hey, listen, don't kill yourself on this one. It's pretty wide open. This is getting welded into something, blah, blah, blah. It can help communicate the urgency or the scope of the job a little bit. Personally, at my shop, we're somewhere in the middle. When I'm quoting jobs, I'll usually take them down to the floor, or, when Skylar's quoting jobs or whatever, we'll usually take them down to the floor or to other guys on the floor and say, unless it's something we just know, and say, hey, listen, what do you think this is going to take? You're probably going to be the one who runs this. How long do you think this is going to take? And then they have a chance to have input on it to say, actually, do you know what? You missed. There's a really tight concentricity call out there. That's going to take like an extra day to do that. Or actually, this part looks complicated, but I know a way to fixture it. We can get this done in, 4 hours. So we kind of try to have a lot of communication throughout the quoting process with the floor in order to make sure we're quoting things correctly, so we're not losing as much or, losing jobs because we're quoting them too high. But on the other hand, the only reason we can do that is because we're a small shop. If we were a giant shop, we would not have that ability. There'd just be way too much incoming. The other thing we do is we have a spreadsheet. So we have a Google Sheet spreadsheet that has every day of the week listed, and then all our machines across the top. So it's like a big spreadsheet with day and machine where you can line it up. And on this spreadsheet, we figured out what works for us is we only book machines in days on this spreadsheet. So it'll be job 1 is in this machine for 3 days, or job 2 is in this machine, and then the next day this job is going in. I can go into QuickBooks and look at the time. We allot jobs to times, and I can really track down how long a job is going to take in hours, or plan out, hey, listen, this job's not going to take a day. I know there's going to be 2 jobs going in this day. With the way we do it, for a really simple way that everybody can look at and see exactly how long things are expected to take, they can look and see, all right, this job's running here for 2 days. Oh, here's a job after that, and so on. Everybody in the shop has access to this. We have found this works really well because then people can plan ahead a little bit and get their head around a job before it comes up. It works well. The other thing we do is, as we go through and do this spreadsheet, we keep it updated in real time. So let's say I had a job booked out for 2 days in the big mill, but it takes 3 days. I go ahead and I shift that around. Or if a machine sits, I put that empty on that slot. So what that does is it gives us a real-time history in days. Again, this is high-level stuff. This is not getting down to the nitty-gritty of how long a job took. So if that job comes up again, I can see, oh, I quoted that for 2 days. It actually took 3. So now I should go and readjust that. Or, this actually took less time than expected. I can be more competitive on this price. So that's kind of the way we work it, but this is really not a one-size-fits-all type of solution. I'd like to know in the comments below what you guys do for this. Do you think that machinists should be communicated with in terms of time? Or do you think that's just too much pressure? How do you guys do it? This is a very, very complicated issue, and I'd love to know in the comments below. And as always, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications below to make sure you never miss a video. Thank you very much for watching, guys. You take care.